Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar on post-market surveillance requirements under the new European Medical Device Regulations. First, let me introduce myself. I am Florian Torcet-Bonfilleux, the Director of Regulatory, Education and Quality here at Eudamed North America. I am also a lead auditor for ISO 13485 and European directives. There will be 4 sections in this presentation. First, where are the post-market surveillance requirements located in the 100 pages regulations? Then we will review provisions related to the post-market surveillance program, the vigilance, and finally a few words about market surveillance. The requirements are pretty similar for both the MDR and the IVDR, and are located in Chapter 7 for both regulations. The chapter numbers are different, but the titles are the same. Chapter 7 is itself pointing to specific annexes describing more in detail provisions related to the topic. In the upcoming presentation, the information in the main text are related to the Medical Device Regulation. The one in green is related to the In Vitro Diagnostic Regulation. As you can see, Chapter 7 is split in 3 sections. We will look at each of them in the following slides. First, let's have a look at the requirements related to the post-market surveillance system. A post-market surveillance system should be planned, established, documented, implemented, maintained, and updated for each medical device. The manufacturer should do so, taking into account the risk class and the type of device. This post-market surveillance system should be integrated in the company's quality management system and should be built to gather and analyze data on quality, performance, and safety of the device throughout its entire life cycle. It should also allow to draw conclusions about this data and be linked to the company's preventive and corrective action system. The next section of the regulation describes what the data gathered using the post-market surveillance system should be used for. So we can identify a first use to update benefit-risk determination and improve risk management, to update the design and manufacturing information, the instruction for use, and the labeling, as well as the clinical evaluation, and to update the summary of safety and clinical performance. Then these data are also to be used for identification of needs for preventive, corrective, or field safety corrective action, and for identification of options to improve the usability, performance, and safety of the device. But also to contribute to the post-market surveillance of other devices and to detect and report trends. From this, the manufacturer shall update its device technical documentation based on what update and modification the gathered data have triggered. And if a need for CAPA is identified, appropriate provisions shall be implemented. Same with incident reporting or a field safety corrective action. After these general provisions about post-market surveillance program, the regulation becomes more specific on what needs to be documented. The first item being the post-market surveillance plan, which is required for all devices other than custom-made ones and shall be part of the device technical documentation. Here, the Chapter 7 refers to Annex 3, same for both the MDR and the IVDR, for the requirements related to this plan. With this plan, the manufacturer shall demonstrate it complies with the provision of Article 83, Chapter 7. Annex 3 goes in detail of what the actual plan shall cover. First, we can find a list of data that shall be considered, such as information concerning serious incidents, including information from the PSURs, and field safety corrective actions. Records referring to non-serious incidents and data on any undesirable side effects. Information from trend reporting, relevant specialist or technical literature databases and/or registers, information including feedbacks and complaints provided by users, distributors, and importers, and publicly available information about similar medical devices. And the annex also presents a list of 10 topics that shall be covered by the post-market surveillance plan. A proactive and systematic process to collect information, and effective and appropriate methods and processes to assess the collected data, suitable indicators and threshold values that shall be used in the continuous reassessment of the benefit risk analysis and of the risk management, effective and appropriate methods and tools to investigate complaints and analyze post-market related experience collected in the field, methods and protocols to manage the events subject to the trend report, but also methods and protocols to communicate effectively with competent authorities, notified bodies, economic operators, and users. Reference to procedures to fulfill the manufacturer's obligation for post-market surveillance system, post-market surveillance plan, and periodic safety update reports. Systematic procedures to identify and initiate appropriate measures, including corrective actions. Effective tools to trace and identify devices for which corrective actions might be necessary. And then a post-market clinical follow-up plan for medical device or post-market performance follow-up plan for IVDs, or a justification as to why a PMCF or PMPF are not applicable. The implementation of this plan can lead to two different types of reports based on the class of the device. The first type is the post-market surveillance report. This would apply to Class 1 devices for the MDR and to Class A and B devices for the IVDR. The post-market surveillance report shall present results and conclusion of data gathered from the post-market surveillance plan and shall include rationale and description of CAPA taken. This report shall be updated as necessary, no frequency requirement in the article itself, and made available to the competent authorities upon request. Here there is a slight difference between the IVDR and the MDR. As for the IVDs, this report shall also be available to the notified body upon request. The second type is for Class 2A, 2B, and 3 devices, and for IVDs Class C and D. The manufacturer shall prepare a periodic safety update report, also called PSUR. As for the post-market surveillance report, the periodic safety update report shall present results and conclusion of data gathered from the post-market surveillance plan and includes rationale and description of CAPA taken. However, here the regulation adds item to be included: the conclusion of the benefit risk determination, the main findings of the PMCF or PMPF, and sales volume and estimation of the user population characteristics and usage frequency. For the PSUR, the update frequency is set in the regulation, and an annual update is required for Class 2B, 3, C and D, and every 2 years for Class C devices. The PSUR shall be part of the technical documentation and made available to notified bodies and competent authorities. For Class 3 implantable devices and Class D, the periodic safety update report shall be submitted to notified bodies and reviewed using the Eudamed electronic system. This implies a new type of annual review for periodic safety update reports by the notified bodies. We will now go over the requirements related to vigilance. For both regulations, these are located in the Section 2 of Chapter 7. On this first slide of the topic, we have summarized the requirements for reporting of serious incidents and field safety corrective action found in Article 87 of the MDR, 82 of the IVDR. In these articles, we can identify that many provisions are coming from the MedDev 2.12-1 Revision 8 related to guidelines on a medical devices vigilance system. So what was in a guideline in the directives has now become requirements within the new regulation. As a general rule, the manufacturer shall report any serious incident involving devices made available on the union market, except expected side effects which are clearly documented in the product information and quantified in the technical documentation and are subject to trend reporting, as well as any field safety corrective actions for devices made available on the European Union market, including in some cases field safety corrective actions undertaken in a third country in relation to a device which is also legally made available in Europe. The manufacturer shall take into account the severity of the serious incident to determine the time frame for reporting it. Based on the severity of the incident, 3 different time frames have been defined: 2, 10, or 15 days. Both regulations give more detail on each situation. All reporting to relevant competent authorities shall be done using the Eudamed electronic system and data analyzed by both the manufacturer and the member states. The regulation is then introducing a new requirement related to trend reporting. For incidents that are not serious incidents covered by the previous article, manufacturers shall report using the electronic system any statistically significant increase in the frequency or severity of incidents that are not serious incidents or are expected undesirable side effects that could have a significant impact on the benefit-risk analysis, and which have led or may lead to risks to the health or safety of patients or users that are unacceptable when weighted against the intended benefits. The manufacturer shall also specify how he manages these incidents and the methodology used for determining any statistically significant increase in the frequency or severity of such incidents, as well as the observation period in the post-market surveillance plan. Competent authorities may assess this data and require the manufacturer to take action. In this case, the competent authority shall inform the Commission, the other competent authorities, and the notified body that issued the certificate of the results of such assessment and adopted measures. Another novelty within these regulations is the implementation of the Eudamed electronic system and its use for the post-market surveillance process. Different access levels will be granted for the different actors. The goal of this electronic system will be to collate and proceed reports by manufacturers on serious incident and field safety corrective actions, periodic summary reports by manufacturers, reports by the manufacturers on trends, PSURs, field safety notices by manufacturers, information to be exchanged between the competent authorities of the member states and between them and the commissions. The system will also include links to the Unique Device Identifier or UDI database. Before going to the post-market surveillance topic, another new terminology is introduced in Article 91 or 86 of the IVDR. It is the implementing acts. It is expected that several of those will be adopted to complete this section. The topics to be covered are identified in the regulation in the Articles 91 for the MDR and 86 for the IVDR. The last section of the Chapter 7 covers market surveillance. We will go a little bit faster on this item, as it mainly impacts competent authorities. But it is always important to know what the other actors are doing with the gathered data. Today in the directive, there is no much details related to the market surveillance activities conducted by the competent authorities. This is therefore a new addition in the regulations. This section describes the post-market surveillance activities to be covered by the competent authorities, and this includes performing appropriate checks on the conformity characteristics and performance of devices on the basis of adequate samples, and drawing up an annual surveillance activity plans and allocate a sufficient number of resources. But also preparing an annual summary of the results of their surveillance activities and make it accessible to other competent authorities. Also, authorities shall carry out an unannounced and announced inspection and may confiscate, destroy, or otherwise render inoperable devices that present an unacceptable risk or falsified devices. On these two slides, only few examples of the competent authorities' activities have been listed. The Chapter 7, Section 3 goes in detail of the competent authorities' obligations regarding market surveillance and also clearly states that competent authorities shall coordinate their market surveillance activities, reinforcing the purpose of harmonization. The last topic we will be covering today is the handling of devices suspected of presenting an unacceptable risk or other non-compliance. This is also a new concept that has been added in the regulations. Article 94-95 for MDR, 89-90 for IVDR describe the procedures for competent authorities to evaluate and deal with such devices. Notified bodies, manufacturers, and other actors are to be involved. Competent authorities shall first carry out an evaluation of the device concerned with the cooperation of the relevant economic operators, and then the competent authorities shall require the manufacturer of the devices concerned, its authorized representative, and relevant actors to take all appropriate corrective actions. Competent authorities also shall notify the Commission, the other member states, and the notified bodies that issued that certificate of the result of the evaluation and of the required actions using the Eudamed electronic system. The regulation also includes the description in case of disagreement between competent authorities and economic actors or between member states. The Commission has authority over national measures and after assessing them can decide they are not justified or even turn them into implementing acts. This concludes this webinar on post-market expectation within the new European Medical Device Regulations. As we can all see here, there are much more details and some new requirements on these topics in the new texts, and the involvement of notified bodies as well as competent authorities has increased. Thank you very much for listening to this webinar. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us at contact@lne-america.com.